Well, welcome everyone. My name's Graham Russell. I'm the Managing Director of HSC Technology Group. We are an ASX listed company that specialises in assistive technology. And very fortunate today to welcome a guest, Mrs. Julieanne Pritchett. Julieanne is a technology specialist with Telstra IoT. She has been working and specialising in emergency response systems nationally for the last 20 years, and very grateful for her to come along today and to share her experience with what she's seeing in the market. And so welcome, Julieanne. And so I'd like to lead off with our first big question. So we're aware, obviously, of the 3G network being rebanded across to the 4G and 5G. So the big question is that when will that happen? And I suppose is that, if you could share why that's happening as well.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Graham, and it's a pleasure to be here with everyone today. So what I would say is 3G sunset is set for June 2024, and the reason why the 3G spectrum is being rebanded is because now we're starting to see the uplift in technology where people demand more of the network from a 4 and 5G perspective, especially as 5G is starting to really, I suppose, take breadth, and technology is really starting to ingest that heavy load of data and network consumption. So we see more and more 3G devices are starting to become end of life, and the technology and where customers are actually choosing to go with their demands on the network, 4 and 5G is really what services the market now, not just from a speed perspective and what customers expect from a speed and a response time from the network, but also all of the new technology that's coming out, such as that future tech around drones and the possibility around that, the possibility of technology even in the healthcare space and how it's so rapidly changing. We're finding as and when technology is changing, the network's having to change with that and service it. So sunset is set for June 2024. So, we're here out to educate the market, to talk about the technology journey that we can assist customers go on, and take really the opportunity to look at, when we're going from that 3 to 4G transition, can we actually look at our technology roadmap? What does the future of health tech actually look like, and how we can service it with more speed and definitely newer technologies that actually drive more insight to a lot of the providers.
Fantastic. Yeah, I concur is that we've seen that as that rebanding's happened, is that we've noticed that the 3G is a little bit slower and a little bit laggier as we're rebanding across. We've found some providers have had some connection issues as that started to happen, and that's sort of obviously, I think, a part of what we're trying to do at HSC and working with Telstra is to really educate and communicate to the aged care sector that we do need to be looking at probably making these changes sooner than later. I know June 2020 or 2024 seems a long way away, but there's a lot of clients to change over. We're aware that the numbers is that there's like 300,000 systems to change. So as a supplier, we're concerned, and we've obviously, I suppose, is that, we were, very grateful to work with Telstra IoT with the recent upgrade to Anglicare. And I was wanting to see if you might be able to share that experience of how we went through that process, because obviously as Telstra has the opportunity to look after the end-to-end offering in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's only 22 months, or that equates to actually 464 days till the 3G network actually closes out and sunset actually occurs. What that actually means, especially considering in the healthcare space where unique to our clients, technology changeouts with most other customers, quite simple. You kind of either swap the handset out or you swap the tech out, and you kind of explain to the new user, this is how you use it, and then off you go. I think in the tech space, especially around healthcare and aged care, it's a lot different. There's nuances where you do need to take a bit more time to explain to them the new technology change. Even if you think it's very like for like, if there's a certain difference with the lights or with the sounds, our end users, especially in the health provider space, they need more time to understand the tech. They're generally adverse to tech adoption anyway. So, you know, the changeover requires us to take more time and understand the audience we're talking to, take the time to explain the tech and what that change out actually means for the provider, for the end user itself, and what the new tech can actually bring for them. I would say that, you know, with Runway, and everyone has been hearing around, you know, global supply chain and global shortages, you would be amazed at the amount of usage these little SIM chips and or chipsets actually are used in different type of technologies. I would say as the demand grows and as organizations and providers are, you know, escalating to swap out from a technology perspective and migrate from 3 to 4G, the demand on these chipsets becomes greater, and therefore the production time of a lot of the manufacturing of technology blows out. You would be, you know, it would be smart to start the transition now, considering the time frame that's left. And I know a lot of customers that we've engaged in conversations, they've kind of said, we'll speak about that next year. It's kind of not priority this year. But if you do have, you know, sites of scale and considering your clients, how long they take to adopt, starting the journey early allows you lots of time to actually transition clients gently into that change, what that actually means for them, handhold them, and ensure that we are actually focusing on the end user and the client. It's not just a simple tech swap or tech change. There is so much more you can actually do with technology in the healthcare space now. It's also beneficial for us to explain that to clients as well as providers that are ingesting and supporting this technology on a day-to-day basis. One of the customers that approached us really early was Anglicare Sydney. And it was a fantastic story that we went and did together with them, in the sense of it was an end-to-end project management that we managed for them, because their frontline team members were quite simply pushed to the max already. Right? Everyone in the provider space at the moment is really pushed for frontline staff. Frontline staff have more to do than ever before. Not only are they looking after infection control, not only are they trying to ensure that, you know, resident welfare, the running of the day-to-day from an RL site or in a RAC site, their primary concern is care, not operational deployment of technology. So Anglicare Sydney really partnered with us, brought us into the business, helped us understand what their requirements are. And from there, we did a full end-to-end deployment model for them to uplift not only just the technology, as well as the service to the end user and clients, as well as the adoption of the technology. So there was multiple factors that Anglicare Sydney were actually looking to get from this technology change and uplift. Because they engaged us early across their, you know, 31 sites in Sydney, we were really able to plan out with each of the village managers and actually do residential workshops, have them understand what this change out actually means for them, have them come along, book in time slots with the residents that suited them to do the change out, and actually take the time to do the technology uplift. What we found is a fantastic feedback, not only from the frontline staff who felt well prepared, understood what was happening. The residents also didn't bombard them with questions, because we were there, we were present, we took them on a journey on how this change out and technology uplift would benefit them as residents. It would also benefit, you know, the village manager from better reporting, line of sight of understanding the trends of what was happening in the village, so allowing them to be closer and stickier to their residents. If there was an incident, getting an incident report straight away really assisted them understanding on their spread of clients, how they can better service and what was needed on their site. So we went on a full journey with Anglicare Sydney. We've actually changed out all of their sites now. They're actually in progress doing the last site with them, which is Castle Hill, which is obviously their largest. The feedback we've received has been overwhelmingly positive from the end users and frontline teams, and we're very proud of that, because, you know, most certainly they trusted us to do it from end to end, and we've most certainly delivered. And I know that we've gotten multiple testimonies on how wonderful not only the frontline team that go out and do the install and do the technology changeover have been, but also how wonderful the back of house, or what we call the support. So the 24/7 monitoring staff members that you don't see, that are generally faceless, but are that reassuring person on the line, the speed in which they pick up the phone, the ability for them to actually articulate caring for the residents whilst they're getting help, then their ability to reach out and advise the village management that something has occurred. The feedback on that has been phenomenal. They really are the unsung heroes. They deliver the service 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So it's just been a really fantastic cornerstone customer for us in this space.
That's great. And I also recall, Julieanne, when we were working with Anglicare in the early stages through the tender processes, is that they really did take that opportunity to look at the bigger space of what that assistive technology can provide. As you're saying, it's not just a tech swap out. They were actually looking at it as at how they could grow the service. And I know that's something that Telstra is obviously big about, is that actually putting a platform in place to allow obviously aging in place as the client's expectations increase, obviously with COVID and the telehealth and all of the changes. Is that how we can start to add extra services in the home and in the retirement living space around vital signs, activities of daily living and so forth, to expand a bigger offering, which then obviously differentiates the aged care providers from other competitors, but also takes that opportunity to really give the clients what they're looking for. And do you see, like, obviously being a specialist in the IoT, that this sunset from 3G to 4G will be a big opportunity for providers to be able to add extra services for what clients' expectations are looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. So from the providers I've spoken to, it's not about adding more services, but understanding what the technology can do for them now. So I would say, the Anglicare Sydney team are very innovative and forward thinking in their view. They're looking at something that will service them for the next 5 to 10 years, right? So they're saying, in 5 or 10 years, would just a simple push button solution solve that for us, or do we need to do more? What I find with a lot of the providers is they're having conversations around not only aging in place, but what technology actually best supports you as a provider to go on that journey. So it's not necessary I need to ingest more for the sake of ingesting more and getting more technology on board because I want multiple systems to run and manage. It's more what technology actually services us as a provider and our future roadmap of where we want to go as an organisation. How do we manage and utilise technology to manage the pressures we're seeing in the aged care provider space at the moment? So we all know that frontline team members are harder to come by. A lot of them are burdened with heavy paperwork at the moment, especially around compliance and regulations and ensuring they meet all of those needs. That's really where technology can bridge the gap. So as a provider, it's about how can I ingest technology to support the future state of my organisation? What does that actually look like? So it's not just let's buy lots of things and bring them in and hope that the technology is going to solve. It's really sitting down and understanding, where does the organisation want to go? What are the biggest pressure points in the organisation, and can tech solve that? And if tech can solve that, how it can solve it. But I'm definitely hearing providers wanting to do more with their technology. They're expecting more from the technology, whether it's insights, whether it's ability to support the frontline team members, whether it's a capability and capacity to report and to understand, what else I can gain from the system that is, once upon a time was a manual task that I can now automate and or get that reporting from a system. A lot of the providers are understanding how technology can really support and uplift them as users, for the future.
Okay. Well, let's, I think I couldn't agree more. Like, we at HSC have developed a platform called Talius, which helps to ingest that information. As you're saying, is that to obviously working with the challenges that we've got as of a huge aging population of, burdened staff and also a skill shortage, is that how do providers actually capture that information and bring that in so that they can actually utilise it to provide better care and obviously operational efficiencies inside the organisation. And what we've been trying to achieve with the platform is obviously to give that to each level of management. So obviously for Anglicare on the executive level, all the way down to the village managers and to carers on site. I wanted to obviously ask you, I suppose, is that I believe obviously the co-design process of what Telstra does, and I know that you have been offering some sort of IoT assessments for providers to actually come into Telstra and to see what's possible. I think is obviously with this opportunity of the 3G sunset, it's obviously an opportunity for providers to have a look at what they're currently doing. And how is that working, Julieanne? How do you offer that service?
Yeah, so as I touched on before, every single provider will be different. I think there's definitely common themes on the pressure points within the industry itself. However, every business and every client you serve is different, and the clientele that you serve is different. The IoT readiness assessment allows us to actually come in and actually co-design, co-create, and understand what you as a customer, as a provider actually require. And what does sunset actually mean for you? So as I mentioned before, it's not just about let's just swap out the technology from 3 to 4G only. It's can we use this opportunity to actually uplift so this technology can service us for the next 5 of 10 and 10 years? What does that actually look like for my organisation as a provider? And where do I want to invest? So some providers have already started their IoT journey, are well on their way. It's also understanding if you have invested in these platforms and systems, if they are disparate at the moment, what would it look like if we brought them together? You know, is there a system where you'd like to ingest this information to start collating and driving some insights? Or as a provider, do you just want to come in at the entry point and start ingesting some technology to go on that journey? Every provider will be at a different point in time. Every provider will be at a different state. It's really important for us to understand customer and who we're servicing from a provider as well as clientele perspective, and then to co-create and understand and help them, I suppose, with their journey around, you know, a guided transition to 4G and the uplift in technology. I think something really neat that you showed me the other day was just the RFID tags on laundry, just to solve the simple solution of where laundry goes, which room does it actually belong to? You know, when they go into these industrial washers, how do we ensure the right laundry is getting to the right client? Even a really simple task as that, if you can actually use technology to sort faster, to ensure that the right belongings are landing with the right person, these are the kind of journeys we want to take customers on, to have them understand, you know, what technology means in their business, you know, where can we actually help them uplift and improve. Every provider is different, and that's why we suggest IoT discovery workshops with the provider. To sit down and understand where their interest is, and as a provider, you know, where do you see yourselves in the next 5 to 10 years? How can technology help that? Do you have technology that you actually utilize today? Does it work for you well, or it doesn't work for you? What doesn't work for you? So really asking those questions and doing that is how we support our clients really go on that guided transition and journey.
Oh, I think it's just critical, Julieanne. Like, you know, we see us as that we are at that precipice of like healthcare technology and aged care technology taking that leap. And I think it would be a very missed opportunity for providers to go and say, you know, it's an overused analogy, but the same scenario is that you wouldn't want to just put another Nokia in for a Nokia. You know, you would actually look at the opportunity to upgrade to a smartphone. And as you're saying is that just still do the phone calls, but you've then got the opportunity to have a platform and some information that will actually then move with the organisation. And as we're seeing is that we often say is that families are often the major decision makers, and we're actually used to technology, and we always actually it's an expectation. And so how are those providers going to meet that measure? We've got a few questions coming in, Julieanne. So I was just actually going to see if we can answer a few of those and see if there's any. I've just got one. I've got one here from Sean Matthews, who's asked, is there a best practice example of IoT implementation in aged care and healthcare? Obviously a big question there, but I suppose maybe that's referring back to that co-design. I was wondering how you felt that, what would be the best practice in implementing these systems? Is that working with
Yeah.
the management again? Or is it?
I think best practice, honestly, is understanding from your frontline team members that service your clients every single day.
Yep.
What is the most burdensome and where technology will help. So sometimes that's actually digitization, some of the processes. Sometimes that may be supporting them in having better insight in understanding the clients. So, if the clients are not there, you're not going to send the nurse to do the home visit because you know that they're actually doing a hospital stay, so you don't waste time. We find best practice is really understanding the frontline part of the business, how and when we can service and assist them with technology, and designing it that way. Reason being is a lot of the noise is generally fed up, and they say, the staff are saying this is a real issue, this and that is disjointed. It creates a lot of pressure. I know something as simple as handover notes generally sometimes get lost, or they're in someone's head, and that creates a lot of frustration of your frontline team members, especially when they're trying to coordinate their days and ensure that they're the most efficient as possible. So best practice for us is not only to sit down and co-design and co-create, but also to invite some of the frontline staff, because what I find is when you take them along on the journey, they'll adopt a lot faster, and generally they're the ones that are most resistant. If they adopt, you'll find that your end clients and end users will also adopt at the same time. So it's about taking the entire organisation on that journey and ensuring that at the end of the day, we always keep in mind our end clients and that we're servicing.
Definitely. I also find is that the best practice is that how you actually move from, traditionally we've been a reactive solution. So, we press a button to call for help when we fall over. It's actually what we're trying to do as HSC, as an organisation, is that how we move from a reactive to a proactive. So we can actually identify client deterioration and high prevalence, high risk clients in home care, retirement living, and also residential aged care. So, we can tell that the client hasn't slept well, for example, hasn't eaten today, their mobility's dropped and so forth. And so they're now higher falls risk. And so how can we intervene before an issue happens? Obviously, as we all know, a fall is a significant factor. And obviously we need to try and, I suppose, we haven't got the resources to react. And so if we can get in front of the problems, this will be a huge, huge help. And so I think it's just leading to us, it's that education that we can provide to them to show them how we can do it. And, it's another bad analogy, but, I use the one all the time is that I remember my grandfather checked the oil and water in his car before he went to town. Now we have sensors that actually give us all that information immediately on what needs to be done. And so it's like most other sectors have moved into that. And we're just seeing is that I feel part of the change management for HSC, and obviously as well as Telstra, is actually showing the providers what's possible. With that, there's also, I've got another question here from another one here saying how much the change management is critical in the aged care, especially with technology, and gaining their feedback and engaging 100% makes all the difference. I suppose is that what we've challenged with HSC is that there has been that lack of staff. And so we've been working with on how we continue to communicate and educate the space. And obviously why we're doing this webinar is to show what providers are doing. So have you had any challenges around the change management process, or is that what you're, I was curious around this experience with Anglicare, how you worked with all the villages in that example?
Yeah, so change management is absolutely critical to this piece, because as I touched on before, if your frontline team resists, it will make the technology, it doesn't matter how great the technology you invest in and you choose to adopt and roll out, if the frontline team members aren't inputting in it and or not utilizing it to glean insights, then it's almost as useless as just go back to pen and paper, right? So the change management component is absolutely critical. Again, out of all probably industries in the healthcare provider space, it's the most difficult, because you have your frontline team members to take on a journey. You also have the end users to take on a journey. Your end users generally are not really big technology adopters anyway, right? If you've ever tried to have a conversation with your nan on how the iPhone can do so much more than just dial or call someone, and if they hold their phone right up to their face when they're FaceTiming, the adoption of technology is hard for the elder generation, right? So taking them on that journey, giving them the time and the space to understand what needs to be done is really critical and important, especially when you're deploying new tech. Then having your frontline team members understand how we're supporting the end clients, because that's priority for them. How is this technology actually supporting them is important. So educating them and uplifting them on what this actually brings, what benefit it is, and then having the end users adopt it's absolutely key and critical when we do these technology change outs, and why our team that we use are highly trained in this space. They're dedicated to understanding and understand the end user. I think that's the most important part. It's not some young person that's going to come in, open the box, drop the phone and walk off and say, this is how it works, it's great, just turn it on, you push a button if you need help, and that's so be it. They actually take the time to explain, to demonstrate, to show them by using it how it actually works when you use it. It's then reminding the frontline team members on that as well, and taking them on that journey in that session, because at the end of the day, they know them, they're close with them, they have a relationship with the frontline staff members. It's those staff members that will actually encourage the adoption from an end user perspective. So most certainly the change manager is absolutely key from that perspective. Platforms and the utilization of more platforms and more technology. So you touched on sensors and things. As and when that eco environment grows, in fact, there's thousands of things that are getting released, every single week is what I would say. The technology just gets better and better, right? The technology and what it can actually do. So if you talk about a simple chair mat, it just used to be a chair mat, would just sense if there was a weight on it or not, to what you can actually do with radar sensor and the new age chair mats. Just phenomenal and amazing. Like, it's night and day where the technology is actually going, right? You can actually take it to a different level. So adoption is on multiple layers. Change management's also on multiple layers. It's key in the success of deploying technology.
Yep. No, for sure. We've just got a couple more before we finish up, and it's probably a good one is that I've got a question here from Sean as well, is that do you get some providers who see technology as a cost and not an investment? I traditionally, I suppose, have found that they see technology as a cost. And what we've been able to demonstrate to them is that, as you're saying, there's a lot of stakeholders, but we actually show them how the technology will actually improve their operational efficiencies. Like an example use case is that we have some retirement living providers will actually go around and knock on everyone's door every day to say hello and to do basically a welfare check. And obviously in big sites, that's a lot of time. And so we've heard the stories of, unfortunately, someone passing and not being picked up for 2 or 3 days. So we, for example, have a little sensor that goes in the toilet. So most people, when they wake up in the morning, will go to the toilet. And so we actually then create, with that tiny sensor, obviously a dashboard to provide to the retirement living village managers to show that everyone's up and awake, or if there's situations that we've got apartment 27 hasn't woken up. So that little sensor has a return on investment with literally in a couple of weeks. And so what we then can also do is send a text message to the family members to say that their mum or their dad is up and active, and giving them some peace of mind. So just to sort of showing I suppose that's how we've actually tackled that challenge, is that really just around utilizing some sensors to give that return on investment. So in a way, it doesn't show it as a cost, but actually an investment. Have you had similar experiences, Julieanne?
Yeah, look, I would say that most providers, and it's a great question, Sean, but most providers probably see technology as an expense at the moment, because that's how it's actually been treated in the industry, right? I'm buying a thing, I'm going to depreciate it over 5 years, so it's an expense to the business. And generally, that's how they look at it, rather than an investment into, future state of the business. What I would say is it's definitely a journey for a lot of the providers. Providers are more challenged than ever from an economic perspective to make it work for the business and to ensure that they are able to service the clients well into the future. It's a journey on understanding, as a provider, where are you actually going can the technology support? And rather than viewing it as an expense, viewing it as an investment into the future. So as an example, you invest in your frontline team to uplift and train them constantly to ensure that they're most up to date, with the current, whether it's infection control handling or whatever it may be. You continually invest in your workforce to ensure that they're relevant and that they know how to service clients' needs. Technology is much the same. You do need to invest to ensure that you're getting the best out of your technology, to ensure that it's still relevant and what I would say best in class in market. But I hear you. Traditionally, it's seen as an IT expense. They expense it and write it off. What you touched on before, Graham, the sensors and the different types of sensors in there. It's really an investment on understanding how you can utilize the technology to better deploy better outcomes for your clients, is what I would say. So investing in tech to see better outcomes in your clients is what we're seeing a lot of the technology going nowadays. But I hear you, definitely a lot of providers are still looking at it as in, this is a capital expense from a technology perspective. How much is it going to cost me? It's not so much about innovation and how I can better support into the future.
Well, I think clients' expectations are as I mentioned, the family members are often a big decision maker. And I see that their expectations have changed dramatically about what they can offer. Also that, the technology can help provide that peace of mind. And obviously after the Royal Commission and a number of the legislation changes, which I think was 20 of them that, said technology was really a big part of the future of how we can scale that aged care sector to actually be able to provide, give some visibility and compliance, and, to give that comfort and peace of mind. Well, Julieanne, I think with that, we probably need to close up as, I could keep talking to you all day, but I just wanted to say thank you very much. I think hopefully what we've provided today is giving some information to providers to know is that they really do need to act now. I know we're saying it's 20 months away, but as we both know, Julieanne, is that we've got some providers currently already working on it, and they're looking at having to replace nearly a village a week to get this done in time. And we will see probably a little bit similar to what we saw in the NBN, some challenges around those changeover processes at the end. And so, prior preparation will be the big part. But I just want to say thank you again on behalf of HSC for joining us today. And really, and if anyone's looking, please go to our HSC technology page. We've got Julieanne's contact details on there, and she'll be able to help you with one of those IoT assessments.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thanks for having me today, Graham. Any other questions? Happy to take it. Thanks for sharing.
Thanks, Julieanne. Talk soon. Bye.